Got a new project here. It is a British steam locomotive from a manufacturer called DJH. They are located in the UK and do all of their manufacturing there, so their products are more expensive than any of the Chinese made stuff that's available from most companies now. But let's see what we've got here. Very large instruction manual. That's a nice size. Should make for easy reading. Let's see, the motor and gearbox, pre-assembled for the most part. The wheel kit. See, the wheels come unassembled from the axles, but they have squared ends, so quartering is no problem. That's nice. See, this is the boiler piece, white metal. Very nice quality casting. Let's see what's in this one. That's kind of hard to get out. Oh, looks like the frame. I'll just leave that in there for now. And some hardware, foam, some detail parts, more white metal castings. They also look like they're very nice quality. More castings and details. And what's under here? There we go. There's the frame. This is an etched brass piece. Very thick metal, good gauge there. That should be nice and sturdy. And last bag is the detail wire and electrical wire. DJH started making these steam engine kits at about the same time as Arbor models, but after looking over everything in here, the quality and accuracy of all these parts is in a whole different league. So I think this is going to be a very smooth and simple process to complete this kit. I'm excited to try it out, see how it does. The instructions say to start with the chassis, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So these are the main chassis parts. You have to cut most of these out from a single plate, and these here are the newer style axle bushings. I believe these here that I haven't cut out are the older style ones, so they'll be unused, I believe. And since these are older parts, you have to do some slight extra work to make these newer bushings fit. So they say to drill these holes out with a certain size bit, but instead I decided to use a round file. That way I can be 100% accurate with where the hole is located, because once in a while I've been able to miss when just expanding a hole with a drill bit. And there are also a few slight edges that you can file down to make it more squared off and fit better. Because the chassis is made of brass, it can be soldered together very easily. So I'm using a large iron set to 700 Fahrenheit, lead solder. Just put the parts together, make sure they're lined up, and the end result is a very nice fit and finish. Frame's all soldered together now. And to hold that perfectly straight while I worked, I put this brass tube through the axle area and sat it on top of this flat block with that opening in the middle. And now it's all holding together nice and straight, very sturdy and clean, and I can clean up the excess solder with a file and sand that smooth. The chassis and all the parts are designed to be a very exact fit, so to make the gearbox slide into here, I actually had to file these down completely flat, but there's still solder going around the inside edges, and that will hold those bushings secure, so now the gearbox can slide in and line up. Thought I'd power this up real quick, see how it does. And as you can see, the low speed operation is exceptionally smooth, and the top speed is within a realistic range from the look of it. These use a 3mm axle, and the kits actually don't include the motor and gearbox unless you ask for it. So for anyone in the US that wants to build one of these kits, you can also use Northwest Shortline gears and motors with the 3mm axle. And there's the chassis. Not much work left to do on it, besides adding the electrical pickup. After all the work I had to do to get the Arbor Models kit running well, it's almost disappointing how easily this is coming together. And there's the fully constructed chassis, along with the rear truck. For the electrical pickup, they said to use a brass wire, but that seemed to be a bit too stiff. So instead I used this KD centering spring, bent it into shape so it acts as a couple of wipers now. I had to do a small amount of filing around the frame for full clearance, but this is very soft white metal, so that's very easy to do. And now it is running nice and smooth. And for the grounded brush on the motor, I just soldered that contact directly to the frame, and that's working just fine. It's working great. It's a very nice quality chassis. After getting the chassis all done, it's pretty much just a matter of cleaning up and putting together the body the way the instructions say to do. The parts all fit pretty well. I did have to do some cutting and shaping underneath there to clear the flanges on the wheels as well as the motor, because this is an older kit, so it was designed to fit the Pitman style open frame motor instead of the can motor and gearbox it's got now. It's not hard to do though, because this white metal is soft and easy to work with. And I think about the only part I'll be changing is this here, because these railings, they're a bit too soft and not quite clean enough to look as good as I'd like, so I'll replace those with brass wire. But other than that, these are all some very nice castings, and it's gonna look, I think it's gonna look great when it's done. Well, I don't have a low temperature soldering iron that's required for this, so I'm just epoxying the body parts together. I almost made the mistake of epoxying the roof on the cab, but you want to leave that at least tacked on with super glue at the most, because there's a screw inside of there, and on top of that, if you epoxy that roof in place, you can't paint the inside or put any crew or anything else in if you want. Also, these two parts here are only soldered to the boiler, because you want that to be able to come off with the one screw on the front and leave the cab behind, so then you can have access to the inside when you need. Got a KD coupler mounted on there, so now it can pull any of my freight cars. I used one of their whisker couplers to save as much space as possible. I still had to do a small amount of filing to that screw head and the rear truck for them to clear each other, but that is at the proper height. I also added electrical pickup to the rear truck, so that'll help it to go over switches a lot more reliably. And I've also added the rest of the details, like the sand lines, the brakes, all the different grab rails and hoses and other parts. So, got the roof there, and all that's left to do now is paint it. I've shown my painting process in enough of my videos, so I decided to just skip that part on this one. So you can see I've finished with the painting and decaling for the most part. All it needs now is some of the decal setting stuff and a final clear coat. But this is kind of fictional. I'm which is probably pretty obvious to a lot of you, the Western and Atlantic Railroad, but this is a British prototype. I kind of painted it to look like the real one from the Caledonian Railway, which is still in existence. So there's some pretty good photos out there to go off of. Just a royal blue color with black and some red accents, striping, gold letters. I thought I'd try lettering it for Caledonian, but I couldn't seem to find the decals or transfers that really matched up to this color scheme, so that's why I decided on fictional. And yeah, now it's all that's left is the final few things, and I can put this back together and have it finished. Well, aside from a couple minor touch-ups and adjustments, this thing is finally done. All painted, running pretty nicely, and I think it turned out very well. So overall, these are kind of expensive, but you really do pay for the quality. So if you're ever interested in building a kit based on mostly European prototypes, I would definitely recommend the ones from DJH. They make some very, very nice stuff.